Hello and welcome back to the Atlas Solutions podcast. My name's Brian. He's Chad, and today we have some Apple news for you guys. Hey, Chad, how you doing today?
Hey, Brian, what's going on? We're talking about Apple Business Essentials today. So we wanted to kind of get out in front of this. We don't know a ton about it, but we want to tell you a little bit about what we know and the past and hopefully the future and all that sort of stuff. Apple Business Essentials. So Apple announced this last week. I'm just going to pull up the web page here and take a look. And right up front, they've got a little kind of video. It says setup, onboarding, backup, security, support, repairs, and updates. Make IT easy. So I want to kind of roll back and explain a little bit of this. We talk about this stuff on the podcast a lot and on the YouTube channel as far as MDM and Apple management and some of the things that the acronyms that you hear in the IT world from Apple. So I want to kind of break that down. So again, back in the past, there was an MDM company, a mobile device management company named Fleetsmith. They had a little dog logo or whatever. And honestly, they were kind of a small player in the game. When you've got Jamf and Adigy and some of the bigger players, you could even say Intune and some of the IBM products that are out there that do MDM. Fleetsmith was kind of a smaller one. So Apple bought Fleetsmith. They acquired Fleetsmith, and then you kind of didn't hear anything from them for a while. Now, even further back, when Apple first started MDM, you had Apple Profile Manager. So you would buy a Mac Mini server and you would kind of manage those profiles yourself. So that would be things like password management. So if you wanted to make sure you had 8-character password with alphanumeric or something like that, that's how you would do it. You'd make this profile and you'd have a server and push. It just wasn't great because you had to have a pretty extensive amount of skill as far as networking to make sure your server was on the right network and able to communicate with the devices. You had to know what settings you wanted to do, keep your server up to date. It just kind of hard to manage. So as MDM has evolved, we've got bigger players like Jamf, for instance. Jamf's one of our favorites. Adigy's another great one. They have kind of different purposes. A good analogy is like we have a destination to go to. We're going to get to California. Well, you can walk, you can ride a scooter, you can take a helicopter, you can take an airplane, you can take a bus, a train, all these different ways to get there. Which one actually makes the most sense? Well, it kind of depends on your goal and what you're wanting to do. Do you need to get there fast? Do you want to burn a lot of calories? Those are different goals. So you might want to walk, you might want to take that bicycle, or you might want to take the airplane. So I want to kind of dive in. And again, we're just learning about Apple Business Essentials. So I'm not going to dig too deep into the technical. It's just a surface level that we're going to talk about today. And then actually later this afternoon, Apple's going to be giving us sort of an open door to comment. They're going to talk a little bit more to us Apple consultants about some of the details and technical. And if there's anything pertinent, we'll share it with you guys. So I'm just going to go down the list here from the website. So setup. So when you set up a Mac, you have to create a user, you have to log in, you have to get past some of those setup settings. Well, if you have an MDM server, if you have MDM software, you can kind of skip some of those settings. Like maybe you don't want your people logging into Apple IDs in the beginning, or maybe you want them to maybe, let's say, not set up Apple Pay in your business. You can kind of manage with MDM some of the setup. Same with onboarding. Now, I want to skip a few down here and talk about updates. Updates also is part of an MDM where you can push updates out to your customers, or to, I guess in your case, it would be your own stuff, or if we're using the tool, we would push it to your devices as well. The big difference here is you can only push updates to Apple VPP applications. You can't do third party, which means no Adobe, no Chrome, nothing third party, no Dropbox, that sort of stuff. So going back up to the list, I talk about backup. This one's a new one. I have not really wrapped my mind around what they're planning on doing with updates. So far, you can't iCloud backup your Mac. So you can iCloud backup your iOS devices, your iPads, and that sort of thing. You can't do your Mac yet. We at Atlas use different tools to back up your enterprise devices so that we can watch and maintain the backups, make sure they're working properly, that they have completed, and that we can retrieve them and all that sort of stuff. So this backup is an interesting piece. I just don't know yet what that's going to look like. And there's different plans as far as how much storage you get and that sort of thing. Security, I'm going to lump that back in with the MDM tools as well. Something like a password requirement or file vault, that's very much a security enterprise setting that you're going to have and say, okay, we need to make sure these devices are encrypted. So we're going to be able to push that profile out and require mandatory file vault, mandatory 8-character passwords or whatever you decide. So again, another feature of MDM. Now to kind of shift into the support side of things. Support and repairs, I'm going to kind of lump into one subject here. And I'm also going to talk about another announcement that we heard yesterday from Apple when I finished this piece. But the support is basically Apple Care Plus. So you basically get 24/7 Apple Care. It's not proactive support. It's just, hey, I've got a problem. My Mac's not working. If you've ever dealt with Apple Care, that's probably going to be your experience here. Is you call, you've got a question, you set up a remote session with them, and they kind of diagnose it. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that this probably is not going to touch things like Microsoft Office, Adobe, networking.
Oh, yeah. No way.
Anything outside of the realm of this is an Apple product. So if you use Excel, if you use anything Adobe, you're probably going to be on your own. And then the last one, which I think, Brian, is pretty interesting, we were talking about before the podcast, is the repairs. So we have customers even now that, they're working, they're architects, they're trying to get the job done, and they've got a $4,000 or $5,000 laptop, and maybe they have a problem with it. Asking a person like that, hey, sorry, you got to go take your place at the mall and wait in line there and drop your laptop off. It's not necessarily the most efficient way. So I want to kind of roll back into the past again and talk about previous Apple features. There used to be a product called Joint Venture. And as a business, the business team would offer you joint venture, and they would have kind of like a somewhat equivalent Mac ready for you to grab and kind of get back into doing your work while they did the repair. Well, with the pandemic and stuff, there's not a whole lot of going into the Apple store anymore. So then Apple was going back to okay, just mail it to us and we'll take care of it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. That's just kind of a unreasonable, like, take your laptop, mail it to us, and best of luck to you. And I know that the official Apple sort of response is, well, maybe you should have another laptop sitting around, and for small business.
Yeah, let's have another $4,000 laptop just sitting here.
Yeah,
collecting dust.
And I mean, in some cases, in a small company of 10 people, to have an 11th machine. Now, that's in the chance that it goes bad. It might not. And then, like you said, it is collecting dust. So the repair piece is pretty interesting to me. And then the final thing I'll kind of mention is that Apple announced yesterday self-repair. So they're now going to allow you to repair your own iPhone 12 and 13. And I assume some of the iPads are in there as well. I haven't read much detail. So anyway, that's the high level. Brian, what, as an IT person, what are your first thoughts on Apple Business Essentials?
This looks like a lot of work for each IT guy. Because this is who I think this is for, is a company that has a dedicated person already. Because this is not something you're going to dive into on your own. There's so much up front with certificates and, the Apple Business Manager and things. Like, you're going to have so much to be ahead of the game here. And it doesn't talk about does this work with, I'm assuming it works with like device management stuff, right? Like if you're buying phones from Verizon or something and having it built into is that going to be part of this? Or is just, hey, because there's so many boxes you have to check to get into MDM now, I feel like.
Right.
It's just going to skip some of those.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, as an Apple service provider, the shot heard around the world was, oh my gosh, Apple's doing support now. They're going to, we'll all be out of business. Well, the fact of the matter is, I gave that example of getting across the country because there's a bunch of different ways. Walking traditionally is not the preferred method to get to California quickly. So there's a lot to unpack in here. Like when we're talking about this backup solution and some of these solutions, in the video, they reference you sign in with a managed Apple ID. At this point in time, a managed Apple ID is very restrictive. You can't really do a ton with it, but you can control it. And I have this conversation with customers all the time about just because your user has a whatever.com domain as their email address, and you force them to create an Apple ID with that email address, they can just go change it. No problem. And I'll give you a perfect example. There was a customer of ours, and this particular user actually went and bought, $1,200-$1,300 worth of software. He had Final Cut and he had Compressor and all the things that they would use for video editing. And then he got another job and he moved to Japan. So now he changed his corporate email address on his Apple ID to his new Gmail account. So now we're left with, well, gosh, do we need to change or ask this guy for his password? Well, no, it's his personal thing. So that's why Apple has these managed Apple IDs, VPP, these tools in place. And you're right, Brian, like these are not necessarily easy. I think Apple kind of throws it out there as, hey, look, you can manage this stuff yourself. Yeah. But using that analogy of getting across the country, these are useful tools. This is the airplane. You need to be in it, but more than likely you're going to need a pilot, unless you're ready to fly it yourself.
Yeah. There's a lot of upfront stuff that's not covered here at all. That's kind of my point there. It's not easy. I mean, it takes a while. There's a lot of little steps to get into this spot. But my initial response was, okay, this is interesting for, again, someone who's maybe it's like a 5-person business, someone super small, who still wants to manage their apps and not have to get into Jamf and add like these big monster MDM companies. So there's an appeal there, but I think you're still going to need some help. And then, I was looking to backup, iCloud, and there's no way that's going to be Mac. That's going to be the existing infrastructure. Like I have iCloud Backup turned on my phone and your iPad. Right. And that's this is the punchline. I think this is for iOS and iPad OS system. Like not a lot of Mac stuff's going to happen here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the fact that they don't support the third-party application deployment, I mean, that's a deal breaker. If you need to deploy Google Chrome, and people make business choices where we have customers all the time that they love Apple. Their primary machines are Apple, but they do like the diversity of, we're going to use Apple computers, but we want to use Office 365 because we interface with a lot of people that use these business systems that are Microsoft based. And so they don't want to have to take a numbers document and convert it to Excel and then send it. They just want to use Excel. So they live in the software world of Microsoft and maybe even Intune for some of these security features. So I was curious about Apple saying this is for companies from 1 to 500. I think that might be yet to be determined. Maybe 500 iPads. I don't know.
Yeah, but, I can see like if you have a big sales force and you're giving out iPads and iPhones, this makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
If you have and if you're that size, you're going to have IT people probably as well.
Well, and going back to like the repairs, I think the on-site repair, that's great. If they could have somebody come out and do a physical repair of a machine, if we can diagnose and say, hey, this thing's got a bad, hard motherboard or something needs to be replaced. If it's an iOS device, if they're willing to come out and replace the screen, that might be of value. The pricing on this stuff, by the way, is pretty inexpensive. Single device, $3 a device a month. So the plan says single device plans are perfect for users with one device and include 50 gigs of storage, device only plans for kiosk displays, and do more, not including storage. If you're like a small restaurant or something and you want to have like a little iPad kiosk mode, sure, $3 a month is great. You don't necessarily need a full-on IT support team for that. Multi-device is $7, $6.99 per user per month. Multi-device plans let you manage up to 3 devices for each user. So that's going to be like Mac, iPad, iPhone traditionally.
Yep.
And then multi-device, more storage. So that's $12.99 per user per month. Give your power users a multi-device plan with up to 3 devices and 2 terabytes of storage. Again, I would make the claim, depending on the situation, multi-device for our customers that are power users is like 5 devices. You're talking iPad Pro, the bigger iPad, iPhone, iMac, MacBook Pro, and maybe a MacBook Air for traveling. So some of our power customers are going to have more than 3 devices, but it's a start. The 2 terabytes, I just don't know, how that's going to fit in. Again, with I think you're right, Brian, with the sizes we're talking about. I just sold a machine to one of our customers yesterday, a Mac with 2 terabytes onboard storage that can go up all the way to 8. Mm-hmm. So it makes more sense that this backup is going to be more towards the iOS device side.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's what a lot of this stuff is. You can sign up for the beta as of now. It says it's technically coming spring 2022. If you have questions about this stuff, just let us know ahead of time. If you're already kind of in the world or you're not in the world yet, let us know, because I do believe that if you have an Apple Business Manager plan and you sign up for this, I believe you get converted. So you might want to make sure this is the right path before, we don't know yet what's behind the curtain. So we'll see more about that literally today and in the coming weeks. So check this stuff out. Apple Business Essentials. I believe the URL is apple.com/business/essentials.
Yep.
And again, if you have questions, just atlascarolina.com, reach out to us, leave a comment on our YouTube page or any of the social media platforms, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. So final thoughts, Brian. What do you think? Are you gonna sign up for it?
I thought about it, but I've got too many devices, so it would be like if you did the device only, like if you just per device per month, I've got a couple iPads, a couple Macs sitting here. It'd cost me $30 a month just to play with it.
Right.
So
well, and in fairness, I mean, when we're talking about pricing, and I'm glad you brought that up. When you're talking about some of the big players like Jamf and Adigy, it's literally the price difference of airplane versus driving a car. Mm-hmm. It's the convenience, the power, the abilities are way more advanced in a system like Jamf versus, what I think they're going to provide. I never personally used FleetSmith before Apple bought it, but I did have one customer that converted from FleetSmith to Jamf because it wasn't providing all the features that they wanted. So my guesstimation is it probably was lacking in some of the expected enterprise features. There may be even a circumstance where Apple Business Essentials will let you kind of dovetail into one of the bigger MDM providers to add additional, or maybe use those steps and then kind of use the backup. That's all yet to be seen. So, if you guys have questions, reach out to us. Otherwise, Thanksgiving's on us next week. We're going to be posting a podcast about a gift guide, so check that one out for sure. We're going to try to get ahead of Black Friday so you can be thinking about what you're going to get for your family and friends before the holidays. So otherwise, have an awesome week, you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.